My name is Timothy Gross. I'm Assistant Professor of China Studies at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in Terre Haute, Indiana. I'm making this video for several reasons. First, I want to shed further light on the crisis unfolding in Xinjiang. Second, I want to discuss my methods for documenting evidence of the mistreatment of Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other peoples affected by these policies. And third, I want to provide transparency of my motivations for going public about the crisis. It is my hope that this video reaches the skeptics who remain unconvinced that the situation in Xinjiang warrants global condemnation and immediate action. I first traveled to the region in 2002, and my trips became regular between 2006 and 2008 when I was enrolled as a student at the Minzu University of China in Beijing. Although the policies in Xinjiang were always more strict than the rest of China at this time, the Uyghurs I knew in Urumqi and Turpan enjoyed life and remained hopeful for the future through 2008. I did not travel to the region again until 2010. I then traveled annually to the region through 2017, with the exception of 2016. In this 6.5-year period, I noticed a steady deterioration of basic human rights. The spaces in which Uyghurs could freely use their language or practice Islam became fewer and fewer, as well as smaller. In 2017, I began hearing reports about the mass incarceration of Uyghurs. During my stay in Urumqi between June and July 2017, a Uyghur friend who worked as a lower-level government official confirmed the nightmare. The government was placing large numbers of Uyghurs in re-education, including people whom I had befriended. Yet, little media attention was being directed at the situation. There was and is no one source of the recent and much needed attention to the Uyghurs. My efforts began in March 2018 in a conference reading room at the Association for Asian Studies conference in Washington, D.C., where a group of scholars who dedicated their lives to engaging China and the Uyghurs decided to shoulder various responsibilities to help tell the world about the horrors in Xinjiang. 2 weeks later, I received word that every adult member of a family very dear to me were detained. I could no longer remain silent. For me, I began writing anonymous articles based on testimony of survivors I had known. The decision to remain anonymous was both to protect the identities of the victims and to help ensure the attention would remain on Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other peoples affected by these atrocities, and not an individual who was not directly affected by the concentration camps. I then scoured the internet to document and share Chinese government sources in order to gather evidence of the camps. For the most part, I sent all evidence to a group page who would decide which items to post. As the movement continued, I thought that perhaps this information would be more powerful and more persuasive if I included my identity. The rationale, although maybe naive, seemed logical enough to me. Early career scholars like myself faced some precarity pre-tenure. I thought by putting my reputation and credibility on the line with each post, I could convince more people. As such, I made it a priority to document Chinese Communist Party sources, translate them as close to the original Chinese or Uyghur as possible, and share them without much analysis or interpretation. Acutely aware of the U.S.'s own toxic retort towards immigration and Muslims, I used Chinese government sources to incriminate themselves. Clearly, the evidence about mass incarceration and mistreatment is irrefutable. The Chinese Communist Party is all too aware of this reality. Why else would they delete pages such as this one? This is an example of a document from Guma County in Xinjiang, and here we have a reference with their own language of re-education center and the URL. And if there was nothing to hide, why else then would they delete the page? And one should be reminded that the Chinese Communist Party flat out refuted the existence of any sort of re-education, even the existence of so-called vocational schools, until they finally acknowledged that they had been providing quote-unquote vocational training to these people. To be clear then, this movement is grassroots at its core. It took months for most media outlets to report on the situation, and even longer for politicians to voice their concerns. I also shared the concerns of others about American hegemony, unethical capitalism, and untrustworthy news. But to be sure, although the crisis has become politicized in order to advance several political positions, some of which I disagree with, the decision for me, and I imagine most scholars share this, to go public is out of concern for my friends, colleagues, and the countless others who have been unjustly punished for their ethnic status and religious observances. And I speak out against these injustices while still holding on to my passion and love for China. As I've been speaking, Tenridzin, the perfectly realized virtue of compassion, has been looking over my shoulder. He is often depicted with 1,000 arms to demonstrate limitless altruism. We too need to become the 1,000 arms in Tenridzin and speak out and mobilize for those who have been silenced.